So I just came back from my trip that I spent in Hawaii that spanned for a week on Oahu Island. It definitely wasn't enough to get everything I had wanted to capture, but I did get one of the shots that I wanted to get, which brings me to the topic of this video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some tips for taking amazing photos, which is sort of like a process or checklist of things to do when planning for a shot, whether it's street photography, landscape photography, etc. I'll be explaining the reasons why I go through this type of process and planning and how they have actually helped me get the shots I had visioned in my head, as well as the ones I didn't even expect to get. So let's get to it. Let's start with this first tip, which is do your research on where you want to shoot. This is a crucial step that can make or break your photo shoot. Before you go out to shoot, you need to know what kind of location you're going to and what kind of shots you want to capture. Researching ahead of time can help you determine the best time of day to shoot, the ideal weather conditions, and any other factors that can impact your photos. For example, if you're shooting landscape, you might want to look up the position of the sun at different times of the day to know when the light is most favorable for you. Doing this kind of research can save you time and ensure that you get the best possible shots. For this particular trip in Hawaii that I just went to, it was this beautiful crater called the Diamond Head Crater. Before this trip even started, I had researched a couple of places that I found interesting and I wanted to go to photograph. This is one of the first places I found. It is quite popular to hike for tourists. While I did get photos from the hike, which is definitely something I recommend if you go to Honolulu, I wanted to get my own photo of the crater in its entirety. I did research not only online for potential locations to shoot the crater from, but I physically tried to go to locations when I was in Hawaii to see which would be the best place to fly my drone from. After a couple of trial and errors and mishaps, I ended up realizing I should be shooting near sunrise instead of near sunset, which was my original plan. Because of the way the sun will hit the outer ridges of the crater, as well as where the sun comes from during sunrise versus sunset. This is only touching the surface of the questions you can ask yourself. A couple of other ones include how you'll get there, the cost if you need to rent transportation, restrictions for drones or the height you can fly up to, cameras, etc. Before you even start shooting, try to ask yourself these type of questions so that way you can be as prepared as possible. The second tip is to pack light and bring only what you need. As a photographer, it's tempting to pack all your gear and lenses just in case you need them for whenever that situation may arise. Trust me, I know this feeling and I know it all too well. But overpacking can actually hinder your ability to move around and get the shots you want. Instead, pack only the gear that you know you will use. This will not only make it easier for you to move from location to location and around it, but it also makes everything less complicated. Instead of worrying about every single composition available, having limited gear will allow you to focus only on the things you can capture with the gear that you bring. For this particular shoot, I knew I only needed my drone for the shot that I wanted. But in the back of my head, I was tempted to bring my camera because what if something presented itself during the shoot that I would need my camera for? That might have held me back and distracted me from getting the shot that I wanted to get, as well as possibly any other additional shots that I can get with my drone, which I'll speak more about later in this video. This allows you to worry about what's important rather than worrying about everything, which can be stressful. In a related topic as well, this limits the amount of things you can lose, which for me sadly may have been my GoPro, as I wasn't able to find it in my luggage after coming back from my trip. This makes it my second lost GoPro, my first one being having lost it in Korea back in last October. The third tip is to give yourself plenty of time to get the shot. If you're shooting a landscape, for example, take your time to explore the area, experiment with different angles from different heights, and find the perfect composition. Be patient and don't expect to get the perfect shot on the first try. Remember, photography is all about trial and error, and the more time you give yourself, the better your chances of getting the shot you want. Talking about time though, this actually leads into my next 2 points. The fourth tip is to arrive at your location earlier than you think you need to. This gives you time to get set up and prepare for the shoot. For example, if you're shooting a sunrise, you'll want to arrive at the location at least 30 minutes or so before golden hour. Or for me personally, I like to give myself 30 minutes before blue hour. So that way I can give myself enough time to set up, prepare, and get in position. Arriving early also gives you a chance to scout the area and find the best spots for your shots. You already know how the area is from researching previously online or scouting the location at a different time. But under different conditions, the location can be totally different. And because the conditions are totally different, you never know what you'll run into. With this same Diamond Head shoot, I knew I wanted to wait until the sun was over the horizon enough to shine on the edges of the crater. But I still went before blue hour to see what else I can capture, and also just get my drone in position to get the shot. What I found out was that the sun actually rose between these two mountains in the far distance, and I was able to get this shot of the sun rising between them. I got a bunch of versions of this picture, but I found this shot where you can see the sun was the one I liked the most. The clouds also just added to the magical kind of feeling I felt when I was on location. Nature is unpredictable, and I just happened to get lucky with this shot, but I would have never had the opportunity to get lucky if I hadn't been there early. The fifth and final tip is to stay a little longer than you think you might need to. Photography is all about capturing the perfect moment, and sometimes that moment can happen when you least expect it. Staying a little longer gives you a better chance of capturing those unexpected moments. For example, if you're shooting a landscape and the light suddenly changes, you'll want to stay a little longer to capture the new lighting conditions. Or if you're on the street and the perfect subject appears, you'll want to stay a little longer to capture the moment. Using this Diamond Head crater shoot as an example again, the clouds had actually been blocking the sun for most of the sunrise, so there wasn't any sunlight hitting the crater for a good portion of the golden hour as well. I knew the sun would eventually get over the clouds, but I didn't know how long that'd take. And by then, how long would that be? A couple of hours? I didn't know. But I told myself just to stay a little bit longer, at least until I can tell myself I stayed and waited. Then I wouldn't regret anything. So as I was bringing my drone back, I noticed the sun was coming out of the clouds. So I quickly flew my drone back to the same spot it had been in. Thank God for DJI tracking your drone route. And quickly took a few photos before the sun ultimately got covered again by the clouds. That happened for a good 10-20 minutes. And while that did cost me an additional $10 or so because of the scooter I had rented to get out there, I'm glad I did, because I was able to get the photo I'd wanted of the Diamond Head crater rather than settle for a cloudy version of the photo, which I thought I was gonna get and had to settle for because of the clouds. So there you have it, my process for going out and planning for amazing photos. These tips have helped me get some amazing photos, and I hope they'll help you too. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.